All right. Welcome. Welcome to Storytime with Faze. Today we'll be reading The Pack of Ragamuffins by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. The cock once said to the hen, "It is now time when our nuts are ripe, so let us go to the hill together and for once eat our fill before the squirrels take them all away." "Yes," replied the hen. "Come, we will have some pleasure together." Then they went away to the hill, and on it was a bright day. Ooh, I gotta start over on that one. Then they went away to the hill, and on it was a bright day. They stayed till evening. Now, I do not know whether it was that they had eaten till they were too fat, or whether they had become proud, but they would not go home on foot, and the cock had to build a little carriage of nutshells. When it was ready, the little hen seated herself in it, and said to the cock, "Thou canst just harness thyself to it." "I like that," said the cock. I would rather go home on foot than let myself be harnessed to it." "No, that is not our bargain. I do not mind being coachman and sitting on the box, but drag it myself I will not." As they were thus disputing, a duck quacked to them. "You thieving folks, who bade you go to my nut hill? Well, you shall suffer for it," and ran with open beak at the cock. But the cock also was not idle, and fell boldly on the duck, and at that last wounded her so with his spurs that she also begged for mercy, and willingly let herself be harnessed to the carriage as punishment. The little cock now seated himself on the box and was coachman, and thereupon they went off in a gallop, with "Duck, go as fast as thou canst." When they had driven a part of the way, they met 2 foot passengers, a pin and a needle. They cried, "Stop, stop!" and said that it would be soon as dark as pitch, and then they could not go a step further, and that it was so dirty on the road, and asked if they could not get into the carriage for a while. They had been at the tailor's public house by the gate, and had stayed too long over the beer. As they were thin people who did not take up much room, the cock let them both get in, but they had to promise him and his little hen not to step on their feet. Late in the evening they came to an inn, and as they did not like to go further by night, and as the duck also was not strong on her feet, and fell from side to side, then went in. The host at first made many objections. His house was already full. Besides, he thought they could not be very distinguished persons. But at last, as they made pleasant speeches, and told him that he should have the egg which the little hen has laid on the way, and should likewise keep the duck, which laid one every day, he at length said that they might stay the night. And now they had themselves well serviced, and feasted and rioted. Early in the morning, when the day was breaking, and every one was asleep, the cock awoke the hen, brought the egg, pecked it open, and they ate it together. But they threw the shell on the hearth. Then they went to the needle, which was still asleep, took it by the head, and stuck it into the cushion of the landlord's chair, and put the pin in his towel. And at the last, without more ado, they flew away over the hearth. The duck, who liked to sleep in the open air and had stayed in the yard, heard them go away, made herself merry, and found a stream, down which she swam, which has much quicker way of traveling than being harnessed to a carriage. The host did not get out of bed for 2 hours after this. He washed himself and wanted to dry himself. Then the pin went over his face and made a red streak from one ear to the other. After this, he went into the kitchen and wanted to light a pipe. But when he came to the hearth, the eggshell darted into his eyes. "This morning everything attacks my head," he said, and angrily sat down on his grandmother's chair. But he quickly started up again and cried, "Woe's me!" For the needle had pricked him still worse than the pin, and not in the head. Now he was thoroughly angry and suspected the guests who had come so late the night before. And when he went and looked about for them, they were gone. Then he made a vow to take no more ragamuffins into his house, for they consume much, pay for nothing, and play mischievous tricks into the bargain by way of gratitude. The end. I'm going to take just a small break. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to go where did it go? Bleh. Bah. Well, that's okay. Taking a small break before we start on the next story. It's irritating. Ba ba ba. Oh, come on. Why are you looking all weird, Vase? Why are you looking all weird? Ha! There we go. So weird. Ooh. What did everybody think of that first story? If you were here for it. Oh my gosh, I'm like all over the place like a weirdo. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We'll start on the next story here in just a little bit. Ba, 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 ba. How's everybody doing? Huh? How's everybody doing? Wow. Some fun things. So things are a little bit different this time around. I actually was able to put all this into my sound booth. The only problem is I can't see the chat when I'm in the booth. So that's the next problem I'm going to have to figure out. Wow. Because apparently I didn't think about that when I was like super excited that I was able to get all the equipment into the booth except for the one piece. And, oh, I think I actually may be able to fix that right now. I think I can. I think I can fix that right now, actually. Yuma, I've always bought one, so I don't know about building one. That's just me, though. I've never built one, so I can't really fully answer that question. Hey, everybody, bear with me just a moment here. I'm actually going to make some adjustments to my setup so that I can see the chat from inside my sound booth, because that'll make life easier, because then I can also communicate with you guys without having to then stop what I'm doing, step out of the booth, see what's going on, go back in, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go kind of radio silent for just a couple moments. Just bear with me here. And I need something to drink. All right. All right. Well, I mean, other than it now being a little awkward in here, it definitely all fits, but it's not a permanent situation. So, I mean, it's positive. All right. I've got to go fix phase really quick, or did it do it on its own? I mean, I think it's kind of fixing itself, but hopefully that helped you. Sorry guys for all the weird noises and stuff I'm sure you're hearing. There we go. All right, 1 second. Aha. Now we should be good. Except for, why am I looking all the way over there? Camera's right here. Right here. Nice, crazy pigeon. That's super cool. I'm gonna hit that button one more time. Oh, bah. Wonder Not too sure why it keeps looking off to the side like that. Hmm. This may not work like I wanted it to. But you know what? The show must go on. All right. I think we're just going to keep going. I'm not sure why he wants to look that direction. I can't get it to change. So, before we do that, oh, I know what to do. Give me 1 second, guys. Keep bearing with me. I appreciate it. Reset the position. And then come back in here. And then go back here. Like so. And now does it look? There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me while we had some technical issues. All right. Ready to start on the second story. Welcome to Storytime with FaZe. Today we'll be reading Little Brother and Little Sister by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. Little brother took his little sister by the hand and said, "Since our mother died, we have made no happiness. Our stepmother beats us every day, and we will come near her, she kicks us away with her feet. Our meals are the hard crusts of bread that are left over, and the little dog under the table is better off, for she often throws it a nice bit. May heaven pity us, if our mother only knew. Come, we will go forth together into the wide world." They walked the whole day over meadows, fields, and stony places, and when it rained, the little sister said, "Heaven and our feet are weeping together." In the evening, they came to a large forest, and they were so weary with sorrow and hunger and the long walk that they lay down in a hollow tree and fell asleep. The next day, when they awoke, the sun was already high in the sky and shone down hot into the tree. Then the brother said, "Sister, I'm thirsty. If I knew of a little brook, I would go and just take a drink. I think I hear one running." The brother got up and took the little sister by the hand, and they set off to find the brook. But the wicked stepmother was a witch, and had seen how the two children had gone away, and had crept after them privily as witches do creep, and had bewitched all the brooks in the forest. Now when they took and Now when they found a little brook leaping brightly over the stones, the brother was going to drink out of it. But the sister heard how it said as it ran, "Who drink of me will be a tiger. Who drinks of me will be a tiger." Then the sister cried, "Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a wild beast and tear me to pieces." The brother did not drink, although he was so thirsty, but said, I will wait for the next one. I will name Oh, I can't speak all of a sudden. Kyle Faxkerly, hi. But said, I will wait for the next spring. I will wait for the next spring. Then they came to the next brook. The sister heard this also say, Who drinks of me will be a wolf. Who drinks of me will be a wolf. Then the sister cried, Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a wolf and devour me. The brother did not drink and said, I will wait until we come to the next spring, but then I must drink. Say what you like, for my thirst is too great. And when they came to the third brook, the sister heard how it said as it ran, Who drinks of me will be a roebuck. Who drinks of me will be a roebuck. The sister said, Oh, I pray you, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a roebuck and run away from me. But the brother had knelt down at once by the brook and had bent down and drunk some of the water. As soon as the first drops touched his lips, he lay there, a young roebuck. I need a drink of water. And now the sister wept over her poor bewitched brother, and the little roe wept also, and sat sorrowfully near to her. But at last the girl said, Be quiet, dear little roe. I will never, never leave thee. Then she untied her golden garter and put it around the roebuck's neck, and she plucked rushes and wove them into a soft cord. With this she tied the little beast and led it on, and she walked deeper and deeper into the forest. When they had gone a very long way, they came at last to a little house, and the girl looked in, and as it was empty, she thought, We can stay here and live. Then she sought for leaves and moss to make a soft bed for the roe, and every morning she went out and gathered roots and berries and nuts for herself, and brought tender grass for the roe, who ate out of her hand, and was content and played round about her. In the evening, when the sister was tired and had said her prayer, she laid her head upon the roebuck's back. That was her pillow, and she slept softly on it. And if only the brother had had his human form, it would have been a delightful life. For some time they were alone like this in the wilderness, but it happened that the king of the country held a great hunt in the forest. Then the blasts of the horns, the barking of the dogs, and the merry shouts of the huntsmen rang through the trees, and the roebuck heard all, and was only too anxious to be there. Oh, he said to his sister, let me be off to the hunt. I cannot bear it any longer. And he begged so much that at last she agreed. But, she said to him, come back to me in the evening. I must shut my door for fear of the rough huntsman. So knock and say, My little sister, let me in, that I may know it's you. And if you do not say that, I shall not open the door. Then the young roebuck sprang away. So happy was he, and so merry in the open air. The king and the huntsman saw the pretty creature and started after him, but they could not catch him. And when they thought that they surely had him, away he sprang through the bushes and could not be seen. When it was dark, he ran to the cottage, knocked, and said, My little sister, let me in. Then the door was opened for him, and he jumped in, and rested himself the whole night through upon his soft bed. The next day the hunt went on afresh, and when the roebuck again heard the bugle horn and the ho-ho of the huntsman, he had no peace, but said, Little sister, let me out. I must go off. His sister opened the door for him and said, But you must be here again in the evening and say your password. When the king and his huntsmen again saw the young roebuck with the golden collar, they all chased him, but he was too quick and nimble for them. This went on for the whole day, but at last by the evening the huntsmen had surrounded him, and one of them wounded him a little in the foot, so that he limped and ran slowly. Then a hunter crept then a hunter crept ap- Then a hunter crept after him to the cottage and heard how he said, "My little sister, let me in," and saw that the door was opened for him and was shut again at once. The huntsman took notice of it all and went to the king and told him what he had seen and heard. Then the king said, "Tomorrow we will hunt once more." The little sister, however, was dreadfully frightened when she saw that her fawn was hurt. She washed the blood off him, laid herbs on the wound, and said, "Go to your bed, dear Roe, that you may get well again." But the wound was so slight that the roebuck, next morning, did not feel any more. And when he again heard the sport sounds, sometimes the wording is frustrating. Oh no, I lost my place. Bear with me. And when he again heard the sport outside, he said, "I cannot bear it. I must be there. They shall not find it so easy to catch me." The sister cried and said, "This time they will kill you, and here I am alone in the forest and forsaken by all the world. I will not let you go out." "Then you will have me die of grief," answered the roe. "When I hear the bugle horns, I feel as if I must jump out of my skin." Then the sister could not do other Then the sister could not do otherwise, but opened the door for him with a heavy heart. And the roebuck, full of health and joy, bounded into the forest. When the king saw him, he said to his huntsman, "Now chase him all day long till nightfall, but take care that no one does him any harm." As soon as the sun had set, the king had said to the huntsman, "Now come and show me the cottage in the woods." And when he was at the door, he knocked and called out, "Dear little sister, let me in." Then the door opened, and the king walked in, and there stood a maiden more lovely than any he had ever seen. The maiden was frightened when she saw, not her little roe, but a man come in who wore a gold crown upon his head. But the king looked kindly at her, stretched out his hand, and said, "Will you go with me to my palace and be my dear wife?" "Yes, indeed," answered the maiden. "But the little roe must go with me. I cannot leave him." The king said, "It shall stay with you as long as you live, and shall want nothing." Just then he came running in, and the sister again tied him with the cord of rushes, took it in her own hand, and went away with the king from the cottage. The king took the lovely maiden upon his horse and carried her to his palace, where the wedding was held with great pomp. She was now the queen, and they lived for a long time happily together. The roebuck was tended and cherished, and ran about in the palace garden. But the wicked stepmother, because of whom the children had gone out into the world, thought all the time that the sister had been torn to pieces by the wild beasts in the wood, and that the brother had been shot for a roebuck by the huntsman. Now, when she heard that they were so happy and so well off, envy and hatred rose in her heart and left her no peace, and she thought of nothing but how she could bring them again to misfortune. Her own daughter, who was ugly as night and had only one eye, grumbled at her and said, "A queen That ought to have been my luck. Only be quiet, answered the old woman, comforted her by saying, When the time comes, I shall be ready. Taking a drink of water. As time went on, the queen had a pretty little boy, and it happened that the king was out hunting. So the old witch took the form of the chambermaid, went into the room where the queen lay, and said to her, Come, the bath is ready. It will do you good and give you fresh strength. Make haste before it gets cold. The daughter also was close by, so they carried the weakly queen into the bathroom and put her into the bath. Then they shut the door and ran away. But in the bathroom they had made a fire of such deadly heat that the beautiful young queen was soon suffocated. When this was done, the old woman took her daughter, put a nightcap on her head, and laid her in the bed in place of the queen. She gave her, too, the shape and the look of the queen, only she could not make good the lost eye. But in order that the king might not see it, she was to lie on the side on which she had no eye. In the evening, when he came home and heard that he had a son, he was heartily glad, and was going to the bed of his dear wife to see how she was. But the old woman quickly called out, For your life, leave the curtains closed. The queen ought not see the light yet, and must have rest. The king went away and did not find out that a false queen was lying in bed. But at midnight, when all slept, the nurse, who was sitting in the nursery by the cradle, and who was the only person awake, saw the door open, and the true queen walk in. She took the child out of the cradle, laid it in, laid, laid it on her arm, and suckled it. Then she shook up its pillow, laid the child down again, and covered it with a little quilt. And she did not forget the roebuck, but went into the corner where it lay, and stroked its back. Then she went quite silently out of the door again. The next morning the nurse asked the guards where anyone had come into the palace during the night, but they answered, No, we have seen no one. She came thus many nights and never spoke a word. The nurse always saw her, but she did not dare to tell anyone about it. When some time had passed in this manner, the queen began to speak in the night, and said, How fares my child? How fares my roe? Twice shall I come, then never more. The nurse did not answer, but the queen had gone again, went to the king, and told him all. The king said, Ah, heavens, what's this? Tomorrow night I will watch my child. In the evening he went into the nursery, and at midnight the queen again appeared, and said, How fares my child? How fares my roe? Once I come, never more. And she nursed the child as she was wont to do before she disappeared. As she was. Yep, that's how it's written. And she nursed the child as she was wont to do before she disappeared. The king dared not speak to her, but on the next night he watched again. Then she said, How fares my child? How fares my roe? This time I come, then never more. Then the king could not restrain himself. He sprang towards her and said, You come none other than my dear wife. She answered, Yes, I am your dear wife. And at the same moment Yes, I am your dear wife. And at that same moment, she received life again, and by God's grace became flesh, rosy and full of health. Then she told the king the evil deed which the wicked witch and her daughter had been guilty of towards her. The king ordered both to be led before the judge, and judgment was delivered against them. The daughter was taken into the forest, where she was torn to pieces by wild beasts. But the witch was cast into the fire and miserably burnt. And as soon as she was burnt, the roebuck changed his shape and received his human form again. So the sister and brother lived happily together all their lives. The end. Ooh, that was a rough one. That got kind of awful there near the end. Dang. Oh, take a breather for a second. I'm gonna drink some water. Drink some water. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gonna drink some water. Drink some water. Welcome, Eric. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ursa. Hi, Ursa. Welcome, Ursa. Whew. I might need to figure out some kind of a cooling system inside my booth because it is warm in here. I am doing good, Eric. How are you doing? I'm debating on doing one more story. Or not. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Ursa, what's Ursa up to? Boop. Oh, those are interesting looking hearts and stuff that are popping up on the thingy. Work is almost done. Heck yeah. Super awesome. As you know, I am still working myself. What do you think? What do you guys? Do you want to do one more story? Do it. Do it. Ooh. I'm thinking about Rapunzel. I'm thinking about reading the next story, Rapunzel. It's not a terribly long one. Oh my gosh, thank you guys for the likes. I can't thank you enough. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to have to reset the camera, though. Oh, well, I'm thinking about it. Just so you guys know, Friday, Storytime with FaZe, the gaming edition. It will probably not happen until later that evening. And that's just because I have some stuff going on that day that I cannot get out of. And so it's going to actually interfere with our normal time of doing Storytime with FaZe and doing our question of the day live. Still going to happen. It's just going to be later in the day or evening, probably, is more likely. Again, same with all of them. If you miss the live, it's going to get recorded and then posted later, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you do have time to log on, I really appreciate it. Before we start this next story, I'm going to reset the camera angle. So give me just a moment here because I have to log out of the program on my phone. Give me just one moment. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, Eric, you're asking for the question of the day. Do I know the specific time? I do not know, unfortunately. I am sorry. I do not know. But ba ba. Okay. Alrighty though, we are going to start on this last story of the day that I'm going to do. Alrighty. Welcome to Storytime with Faith. Today we'll be reading Rapunzel by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm. There were once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length, the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress who had great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day the woman was standing by this window and looking down into the garden when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion, and it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it and had the greatest desire to eat some. This desire increased every day, and as she knew that she could not get any of it, she quite pined away and looked pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What aileth away and looked pale?" Wait, what? Oh my gosh, I skipped a line. "What aileth thee, dear wife?" "Ah," she replied, "if I can't get some of the rampion, which is in the garden behind our house, to eat, I shall die." The man who loved her thought, "Sooner then let thy wife die. Bring her some of the rampion thyself. Let it cost thee what it will." In the twilight of the evening, he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion, and took it to his wife. She at once She at once made herself a salad of it and ate it with much relish. She, however, liked it so much, so very much, that the next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden. In the gloom of evening, therefore, he let himself down again, but when he had clambered down the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How canst thou dare," she said with angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? Thou shalt suffer for it." "Ah," answered he, Let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such a longing for it that she would have died. Excuse me. She would have died. All right, we're going to do that again because I completely lost my place in that cough. And felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not gone some to eat. Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened, and said to him, If the case be as thou sayest, I will allow thee to take away with thee as much rampion as thou wilt. Only I make one condition. Thou must give me the child which thy wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother. The man in his terror consented to everything, and when the woman was brought to bed, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower, which lay in a forest, and had neither stairs nor door, but quite at the top was a little window. When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it and cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair. Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them around one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up by it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest and went by the tower. Then he heard a song which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that the enchantress came, and he heard how she cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair. Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. If that is the ladder by which one mounts, I will for once try my fortune, said he. And the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair. Immediately, the hair fell down, and the king's son climbed up. At first, Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man such as her eyes had never had yet behold came to her. But the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for a husband, and she saw that he was young and handsome, she thought, he will love me more than old Dame Gothel does. He will love me more than old Dame Gothel does. And she said yes, and laid her hand in his. She said, I will willingly go away with thee, but I do not know how to get down. Bring with thee a skein of silk. Bring with thee a skein of silk every time that thou comest, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and thou wilt take me on thy horse. And thou wilt take me on thy horse. They agreed, and until that time, he showed. Ah, they agreed, and until that time, he should come to her every evening. For the old woman came by day. The entrant, the entrant, the the enchant. You know when you start to get like tongue tied and your lips and all that stuff gets like sore and tight. That's what's happening right now. We're so close. They agreed that until the time he should come to her every evening, for the old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked nothing of this, until once Rapunzel said to her, "Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up than the young king's son. He is with me in the moment." "Ah, thou wicked child!" cried the enchantress. "What do I hear thee say? I thought I had spared thee from all the world, and yet thou hast deceived me." In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice around her left hand, seized a pair of scissors with the right, and snip snap they were cut off. And the lovely braids lay on the ground, and she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert where she had to live in grief, where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day, however, that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress in the evening fastened the braids of hair which she had cut off to the hook of the window, and when the king's son came and cried, "Oh, what the heck just happened? Bear with me a second. That was really weird. Everything just glitched for a second. All right, we're back." On the same day, however, that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress in the evening fastened the braids of her hair, which she had cut off, to the hook of the window. And when the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair," she let down the hair. The king's son ascended, but he did not find his dearest Rapunzel above, but the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. "Aha!" she cried mockingly. "Thou wildest fetch thy dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it, and will scratch out thy eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to thee. Thou wilt never see her more." The king's son. The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to him that he went toward it. And when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and fell on his neck and wept. Two of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom, where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happy and contented. The end. Woo. What do you guys think of that one? Oh, whoa, whoa. Thank you, Ursa. Thank you, thank you. Oh, silly microphone. Alrighty. On that note, guys, I am going to take off, get a little bit of rest, maybe drink some tea. You will see you'll see the live posted here very shortly, and pretty much after I get off, it'll post automatically. If you missed it, but otherwise, the videos themselves will be edited and posted up later. So look for those. If you just want to watch the stories, don't forget, question of the day will be here in about an hour. If you're looking forward to that, I know I am. I've got a fun one. So, other than that, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.